You're listening to the Money Mike Syndicated Radio Podcast. How we doing? How we doing? WNBA CBA agreement, that's chump change. Yeah, I'll say it again. WNBA CBA agreement, that's chump change. Ain't no doubt about it. CBA agreement that they're negotiating, and you got Caitlin Clark sitting in the middle of that CBA agreement. And really, for the WNBA players at this point, I don't care what anybody tells you. The WNBA CBA agreement is chump change. And why is Money Mike? You're saying it's chump change because I think the WNBA announced they lost 40 or $50 million last year, and they've lost a lot of money over the years, right? And now today, the main concern that the WNBA players want to get back, they need that 16% back that they did for a capital raise. Because now, when you got Cleveland ready to pay 250 million, that 16% comes out about $50 million, which cover all the salaries, right? But let's get into it, and let me tell you why the WNBA is chump change. And with Caitlin, I'm going to change the name from Caitlin to Moneybags. How about I just call Caitlin Moneybags, right? And if you put it up to me, and if I had to do it my way, what would I do? I'd send Caitlin right on in there to see old Elliott Hill, because at the end of the day, you can go in there and you can bring all your papers and you can bring everything that you got and all the reports. And you could say the WNBA players, as many people have said, they're losing money. I mean, I've heard fans talk about that, but that's not the real story. And a lot of times, what happens is you can publicate or do publication on just about any story, but eventually you have to look at the numbers. And Elliot Hill looks at numbers. And to Elliot Hill, the WNBA making $1 billion or losing $40 million, right? 40 million or 50 million, right? That's chump change to these guys. That is a tip that they leave at the favorite restaurant that they have a corporate account at. Okay, here's the deal: you got Caitlin. Here's Money Mike. Now, as you know, I come up with the weirdest things ever, and I heard somebody say, Scott. I like what Scott told me. Scott says, "Hey, Mike, you must be going after views. You must be clickbait, clickbait." Guys, listen. If you're gonna tell me clickbait, I'm giving you this information 2 months in advance, right? So don't understand. But if you want me to be clickbait, at least put in the comments that Mike, you are number one in clickbait. Now, here's the deal. Let's get back to the negotiation because the WNBA players are assets. They're not product. And I've had told you before, the WNBA have players because they are the assets. They have the intellectual property. And because every one of those CEOs and Kathy Egerbert, everybody there, I would send money bags in, Caitlin Clark, and I'd tell her to go do the negotiation because they're not going to say no to Caitlin. They can't say no to Caitlin. And let me tell you why. These guys have built out a platform. This is where it's going to get really interesting, right? Because I kind of told you about Stanky and me being retired from AT&T and T and all the meetings I sat in with CEOs. Let me tell you guys, that's chump change. All right, if you sit in there and I go, if John Stanky gives me a call and says, Mike, well, how's the WNBA doing? I said, I'm going to tell you the same thing, John. What you got is their headquarters in New York. They've got about 15, 16 locations. They want to do a 32 team expansion, and they're looking to get raise acquisition fees. But we got one holdup. Well, what's the holdup? It's they're concerned about the 40 million, right? You know what John Stanky would tell me? Mike, if I paid the 40 million for the next 5 years, would that move this negotiation along? I'd say yes, right? Because to AT&T, $40 million is chump change, right? There ain't no doubt about it. To Nike, $55 billion a year, folks, it takes 1,000 million to make a billion. Now, why do I call it chump change? And that's an African American community phrase, meaning that it's pennies, right? It's pennies on the dollar, this CBA, but they're making it like it's out of the world. This is not a lot of money, folks. It takes 1,000 million to make a billion. So basically, losing 40 million is like going to the blackjack table. Okay, you lost $40 a day playing blackjack. I mean, it's no big deal, right? The interest covers that all day long. And so the AT&T, And you got Disney, Robert Iger, and I don't know, I may have overlooked it. They trying to get a new CEO in there, but to Disney, $40 million, that's chunk change. These guys here, they got this thing built up, and here's Bezos, right? You got Bezos over there with Roger Goodell. If you go in there with all those NFL owners, and they're already giving up 50%. Now here's the deal. The NFL owners are giving up 50%, but they're packing the house because the players, the agreement, the players are happy to be there. It's appreciative. The WNBA is packing the house, moving into new stadiums. A little risky on my part with the new stadiums, but here's where I'm going. How can Bezos be working with the NFL and come in here with a CBA agreement and talking about the women? You're losing $40 million a year. I don't think you give Jeff Bezos the entire WNBA and have him integrated under Amazon and put it under their infrastructure. I guarantee that 40 million is going to disappear in a heartbeat, right? Because the WNBA players are the asset because they have the intellectual property. Now you got Kathy Engelbert, and Kathy Engelbert knows the same thing. Now, what's Kathy Engelbert's job is to come in, okay? Because you always got to remember, Kathy Engelbert works for the owners. She doesn't work for the players, right? And so now you got to understand her job is to keep that negotiation low. And with the WNBA, now you got Caitlin Moneybags, right? Because no one expected Moneybags. That's my new nickname for Caitlin. I tried Golden Goose. Too many people use. So I got to come up with stuff 60 days in advance. Everybody catch up. Okay, why is Caitlin Clark Moneybag? Because they have invested their entire budget in Caitlin Clark. Now, I want you to put that in perspective, right? You got to put it in perspective and why they will not tell Caitlin no. And if you guys, some of you guys are very smart. I got Abe, I got Scott, I got a lot of guys, John, Denise Bailey. I got a lot of people out there smart. You guys are really smart, right? There's no way in the world you're going to tell me these guys are going to put a rollout, right? They're going to pull a full on rollout, lay out 41 national TV games, right? They got 41 national TV games featuring Caitlin Clark. In fact, for you doing 41 games, and if they were doing it right, I think Caitlin's getting undercut really a little bit here because Caitlin, you're going to make these guys about $12 billion, right? And they want to argue over $40 million. You got Foot Locker. You got all these guys are in there. Guys, this is a weird story to me. And I am just looking at this because I'm trying to understand what Kathy Engelbert is saying. Then the other thing I want to make in a relationship, because you got the superstars and the biggest fight, right? The WNBA and the players, the owners, that's not your fight. You know what the WNBA and the owners fight really is? It's the WNBA against the NCAA because there's a lot of movement that's going on and it's a lot of things that are happening. And I told you guys, everybody didn't believe it. I raised my hand. I said, guys, look, grassroots is coming in. When grassroots comes in, you're going to have a lot of portal transfers. You're going to have a lot of those coaches who used to coach the way they used to. They can't do it anymore because the player is going to get paid more money to go somewhere else. And the player's making more money in college than they're making in the pro. That's why it's chump change, right? And you want to pack every arena, but you can't do it that way because the WNBA players have the intelligence. Now, we went back and forth on Juju Watkins. You guys know I like Juju and I like Kate. You guys like Kate and I like Caitlin too. I mean, you got two great superstars, unknown, right? Unknown. I mean, we don't know what kind of year Caitlin's going to have. That thing can blow up. And then, Juju's already made the announcement along with Collier. You got to give me my money because here's the deal. If Caitlin was still in college today, now let's back it up and let me tell you why it's chump change. Again, Juju makes $1 million in NIL today. Okay. Put it in perspective. Caitlin Clark, if she was still at Iowa, you might have a $5 million NIL, right? So this chump change of you're not making money or money's not available and money's not available for the women. There's just too many avenues now for them to make money. And I think the WNBA, you can't strike, right? You can't strike, right? So, but if you don't show up to work, okay, then guess what? They lock you out and they try to figure out how they're going to keep the business rolling, right? But when it comes to these women, and guys, I'm telling you, talking about Asia, this is chump change. You know what you're really negotiating over is the merchandise rights, right? Because the ladies deserve 50% of that. Actually, it should go, the merchandise should go 60-40 because here's what's up. When you get money bags, Caitlin, okay, and you get the Louis Vuitton bag, Angel Reese, okay, they're bringing in money off of their own intellect. They're the ones, when I talk about intellectual property and you look at the players, Chelsea Gray, Jewel Lloyd, intellectual property means they get their hair done a certain way. They get their clothing a certain way. They have to make and look, put on a face every day. In the NBA, players just play, right? But in the WNBA, these women got to put on a face. These Janae's got to put on a face every single day, right? You got to be like a model. So it's kind of opposite, but that intellectual property of doing the Angel Reese podcast, of going out there doing skits, they have kept the drama going, made it love and hip hop. And for the first time, I bet in a long time, now I don't know, I could be wrong because I've kind of come in the first year of really just pinpointing it down, started coaching women in 2012. And I'm just trying to look at this thing and I'm saying these ladies are very, very good on social media, and social media is the ticket of the future. I'm not going to say it any other way, folks. I can't sugarcoat your way out of this. But for me myself, as I'm in the entertainment industry, I'm an account executive in the entertainment industry. I look at numbers. I look at numbers all day, and the social media numbers are high. The cord, watching it on Dish or DirecTV or anything like that, those numbers are decreasing. But the women put on a show off the court, and I'm telling you, this chump change. These guys know it. I don't even see the fight, right? Because here's what can happen. Let's say the owners decide, no, we're not going to pay you, right? They're going to have to shut down, right? You know, Caitlin Clark hasn't played basketball in a year. I don't think they're going to take the risk, okay, of Caitlin Clark not playing for a year and saying go play. And Caitlin Clark, I'll tell you, she's on the side of the players. She's been a player. She knows these women, and all these women work together, right? They work together from end to end. Now, here's what I'm going to tell you that really, really gets interesting. The WNBA players opted out of the CBA. The state extension negotiated a new agreement. I think they're playing Texas Hold'em. I think the ladies have got a royal flush, and I think the owners got two pair. Their money's already laid out, right? It's laid out for them to play. So if they didn't play, you talk about losing more than $40 million when you're trying to drop two shoes, right? You're trying to drop a Caitlin Kobe shoe, right? And you need the league up and going for that to work, or it's not going to work. Now, let's address Collier. Collier, these guys are telling the truth, man. These guys are really laying it out because they know the numbers over there at Unrivaled, and they're come back over here and they're saying, hey, and then you got to understand with Collier, yeah, it's true. She's coming out of UConn, Geno Smith, Women's Basketball School of Business, right? That's Geno at UConn. It's a women's basketball school of business. And she's like, okay, here's the deal. I'm an owner, right? And now you're going to pay me less money than I just made. And just so we're clear, on the other end, we give out over 100,000, right? Because we give out money that the WNBA is more than you giving out for a salary, right? So you got to put all this in perspective. And why am I saying this the way I'm saying it, folks? Let me just tell you that money they're talking about with the CBA, and you got Nike, Elliott Hill, they got shoes ready to go. They've got commercials ready to go. You think you haven't seen a commercial of Money Bags yet? Money Bags commercials are going to run all over that network, and that's why they have her on. So this little fallacy they're talking about, just hang tight because this is the Money Mike Syndicated Radio Podcast. I'm telling you, WNBA losing 40 million. These guys will lose 40 million for the next 5 years. You know why? Because they're going to make $12 billion on the top. And when you're taking that money on the top, Nike, $55 billion a year, they ain't saying no to money bags. Plus, Caden's like a daughter to them. They don't know how to say no. Right, but John Stanky, what's holding up? I don't know, about 40 million. Let's go ahead and make money. You know, Stanky, Robert Iger, all these guys, they'll go ahead and play it. And Bezos, he's all about distribution, right? He wants to take this thing deeper and further and control all the sports leagues. And I'm telling you, he's a man with a plan. But when you look at the numbers of social media, and folks, you got to know, Kathy Engelbert knows those numbers too. And you know what? When you get into social media, Here's what you got to understand, it gives you the intellectual property to be who you are, what you are, and where you are. And the WNBA players, they want rights to that. They want rights to their intellectual property. They got to put a face on, they deserve it. Kiki, USC, I love it. I love it. California girls, Caitlin and Juju, Team USA. You got two of the best. Well, let's be honest. How much is Caitlin worth a year? Money Mike says about 15. How much is Juju worth a year? Let's say about $14,999.99. I'll give Caitlin a penny above, or we can flip for the penny. But both of them are big time money makers, and that $4 million is just chump change, folks. And when I tell it to you like that, I want you to think about it. Las Vegas Aces came on the board, two-time champion. Asia Wilson's money bags too, making the money, right? But every time Asia Wilson, I'm gonna let you guys on a little secret. Every time you talk bad about Asia Wilson or Angel Reese, they make money. You know why? Because the fans respond to your anger at these women and they start buying their product. You got to figure this one out because I'm looking at the numbers. So every time you talk bad about Dejanay, people buy more Dejanay. Every single time you want to talk about anybody, Alyssa Thomas, they buy more. Talk more about Brianna Stewart, you don't like the Liberty, people buy more jerseys. It's a recycle, but it's the truth. And I'm telling you now, you want to talk about Natasha Kyle, that just makes her revenue go higher and higher. Because you're exciting the others who are going to step in, social media, social justice, and they're going to buy more. And don't forget about money bags. That's Caitlin Clark. It's easy as peasy. This is the Money Mike Syndicated Radio Podcast. I'm telling you, all things are possible to those who believe. But that CBA agreement, with all these contracts and everything, national TV games, that's chump change. And if the WNBA players don't see that, you're not the product, you're the asset. And you're a plausible asset, and the game can't go on without you. This is the Money Mike Syndicated Radio Podcast. We always tell you, all things are possible to those who believe.